think about the osteoarthritis. Yeah. What I was thinking, let's say you have a young horse who's not really trained a lot, and then there are problems with C6, C7, and T1. What do you say about that? Because the horse is not trained? Is it because it's from breeding? Is it because of his build, his exterior? Yeah. I mean, it's my horse actually, so it's a tall and narrow horse, and now he gets a little bit wider. So I was curious, how does this develop? Did I buy the wrong horse, or what did I do?
Well, it's difficult to comment on one horse and the horse I haven't seen. So it's usually a combination. I think Karin's talk about the new modern horse with being hyper flexible, that is a problem because you need to work on stabilizing things, and that takes a long time. So that's I didn't talk too much about in my talk, but the stabilizing mechanism is really important, and I think that's why that area is such vulnerable. And that takes time. And if you develop the big, powerful muscles first, then they're not going to find those small muscles. So it takes time, a long time to just and working the horse in the right frame, and not moving on too fast. And I think even have you got the horse diagnosed with those? Yeah. So I think the first thing is to control the pain, and then start on the rehab program where you actually long term build up the strength of this horse, then it might work. So it's not necessarily hopeless just because you have that diagnosis. Yeah. Have you got neurological signs as well, or is it pain?
It was last year, so I did already do the rehabilitation. But now I'm thinking, where does this come from? Am I doing this in a correct way? What can I do to improve? Like you said, train the little muscles and not the big muscles. And now I saw today, I thought, yes, there is instability there, so I need to train this. And yeah, I'm curious to hear what there is, what I can do, what more.
Maybe we can ask Karin Leibbrandt if she's, yeah.
And of course, it is difficult in a horse because you cannot tell them, now you have to train this group of muscles, now you have to train that one, like you can do with people. But I think the most important part is to teach the horse how to be in vertical balance. Because if the horse is in vertical balance, the trunk is exactly in the middle of the shoulder blades. And then the horse is rotating the withers upwards. So if the horse is vertically out of balance, the withers are rotating to one side and going downwards. And this is giving a rotation in the entire spine, but also in C6, C7. And also an extension over there. So the first part in of course, we do myofascial release first and see if we need to do other things to release the pain. But when you do the vertical balance, the horse will start to lengthen the neck. And when he lengthens the neck, he starts to lift C6, C7, T1, and then you are actually training the core musculature. And horses just need a lot of time. And I think with horses like this, you'll be working for 2 to 3 years to stabilize this part of the body. And we know that the perfect forward, downward, outward posture is an arch from the withers going upwards, forwards, downwards, the nose in front of the vertical, and the nose should be more or less in the same angle as the scapula. But most of these horses cannot do it. They cannot arch the neck like that. And sometimes, so they keep their neck a little bit too, as a broomstick. I always call it like that. While they should actually arch it more. But if we force the horse to arch it more, it will only get flexion in C2, C3, but it will not start to lift C6, C7. And there is the problem. And well, it can take a year or so before the horse can actually lift that part and stabilize it enough. And then you know that you can proceed with more difficult exercises.
Thank you very much, Karin.
Thank you. Sounds familiar, so you helped me.
Well, you're welcome. And I see these horses a lot. This is actually, I'd say 15 years ago, the average age of rehabilitation horses was 15, and now they are 4 or 5 years old. And almost every horse has this problem. But if you take time, you can be really successful.
I have a question for Sarah. It might be that Eva or anyone else might be able to help me with this. I'll help with this. It's great presentation. Sorry, I took my away from my mouth. Yeah, great presentation. I think a lovely example of using marketing and so on to a susceptible audience is great. So, yeah, my question is, you showed various videos and photos which were classified as hyperflexion or not hyperflexion, or behind the vertical, not behind the vertical. When we've got horses moving through a stride, the head and neck moves during the stride. So when we've got obvious hyperflexion, which is all, you know, is definitely welfare issue, then that's clear. But when we've got horses that are just behind the vertical, then part of the stride they are in front of the vertical, part of the stride they're behind the vertical, depending where the head and neck is in the position. How do you manage that? And like canter, yeah, gallop, yeah.
I think you mean especially the last phase of the gallop.
Yeah.
This one, where they go like this,
Yeah.
it should be like this. And that's a whole training program. And it is normal that in this stride, the hyperflexion is worse with people who ride in hyperflexion, or even if it's not on purpose. But it's really on that moment that the horse should be able to do that, and riders keep them there. And then he can't mathematically do anything else than do this or do that, because the rein is just this long. And he can't do anything else and duck behind the vertical more. It's just mathematics. So we cannot really explain that just in a few minutes. If you have to retrain the horse and the rider from the beginning. It's a basic, the horse should go into the contact forwards always. And it's very difficult. I don't say it's easy to have in the last stride the horse ducking behind the vertical, but it should be possible to avoid it. Because in nature, they don't gallop like this either.
Sorry. I think that's not probably quite my question, because what I'm trying to say is when we're trying to classify it as behind the vertical, hyperflexion or not, what part of the stride are we taking? Because and we'll see that in walk as well, where the head and neck is, we know from all our biomechanics and kinematics that they move the head and neck up and down. So if it's fine when it's clear when it's for all of the stride, but when it's for only part of the stride, I'm just wondering how you're classifying it, because I understand all the principles behind it. It's just how we classify things.
So I don't think it really needs to be classified. I think it's just something unobservable that shows us that the training is not yet very good or good enough to avoid that. Even if it's just in a stride like this all the time, he should never come. We should try to avoid it, and it's possible. Good trainers know how to avoid this. So it's just another observable. It's maybe somebody who is better already on a better road than somebody who's all the time behind the vertical. But if the horse goes like this, then there still is a problem in his training. The horse doesn't do this enough. It's just an observable. I don't think we need to classify it. We're not going to call it intermittent hyperflexion or something. It's just we observe it. There's a problem in the training. We have to fix it. I don't think it needs really...
Like just from a marketing and communication standpoint. I think Crispin, actually, this afternoon made very clear that you are able to curate images of like the entirety of a strand. The important thing is we are not perpetuating a witch hunt. The point is not to say there's hyperflexion in each and every strand. Horses are living animals. That's not going to be by the book every time. My problem is with the choice of those pictures. If you're able to take 4,000 pictures on a 6-minute course, you should be able to find at least one picture to advertise for the discipline that is not representing hyperflexion.
That's the point also in the market. They always say it's just a moment in time. That's their excuse. Already, if they say this as excuse, they know there's a problem with the photo. Why do they choose the photo if they know that they have to say as excuse it's a moment in time? I just wanted to add something about the presentation of Sarah Escoubet, who was really very good. I think we just need to be a little bit more precise with the pictures and the little the little logos, because the heads weren't not this far behind the vertical on these photos. I think it's in because for clarity, it's in the sake of clarity. But I think we already are labeled as extremists, so we should be always irreproachable on this. And it's very difficult to state that the horse that you see before in a front vision, to say it is this far behind the vertical. It's really, we can say it's behind the vertical if it's clear, you can really see it. But we have to really be careful with this. But it was a very good presentation. But I think Kathrin and me think it's very important that we all are totally irreproachable when we talk about this topic. It's a very, very, very difficult topic to talk about. And every word we say is analyzed. So we really have to be very careful. But I really thank you a lot, because the narrative of your presentation is really it needs to be heard, because there is a problem with this marketing and with this choice of pictures. But then we also have to be irreproachable when we, yeah. This is just a takeaway message also. Somebody else has a question for another speaker? Yes.
Thank you. I have a question about blue tongues. So maybe Christine or Crispin, I don't know. When you see, how many times does a tongue need to be compressed to become blue? And once the pressure is released, how many times does it take for the tongue to become pink again? Did you see, for example, Crispin, in your picture, at the end of the show, when the riders congrats the horse, does the tongue become red again, or can we control it at the end of the show?
Crispin answered this.
So I've actually had that question quite a lot of times now, and here it's important, I think, to say that I'm just taking pictures and looking at them and observing them, so I can't be. But as I understand, there's no real research on this, and from what my observations were, and I'm not a vet, was that it changes quite a lot, and it's very, very different. But what you can see is that there is it's not that it's one color through the whole 6 minutes. So it is returning, and because it's so difficult to observe, and you aren't observing it, you know, when they let the reins go loose at the end, they've got quite a long walk out to what I would quite like to do was to run out and then film the steward control, but it's often too far to do so, and also filming steward controls is very, very difficult. But I think it's very interesting. But what also makes it difficult is when the horse is walking on a loose rein, they usually aren't opening their mouths that much, so that it's actually really difficult to see these things, and yeah. And as far as I know, there isn't any research on it. But what I can say then is that it seems to me to be a lot more varied than one might think, and that there are definitely parts in the program where the tongues do go blue. So it's typically in the pirouettes and the last center line, in the passages. So for me, it looked like, and this is just me observing, it looked like, you know, it's definitely when you see the rider having a lot more pressure and then it releases. So the correlation there is, so I think you could also maybe sit and look at this and think that without seeing the tongue, you could almost think, okay, very likely it would be blue there or discolored there, you know, blah, blah, blah.
I think that the time to walk to the stewards, it's gone. I think so. But
and there's just loads of observations to make, and there's just such a huge material to go through. And but what I can say that there were some horses that never. There was actually at least one of these horses that always had the same color, and there are some horses that do go from a paler color and to a darker.
Thank you very much, Crispin. Is there another question in the room? We have another question from the live stream that is for Kati Tuomola. So it's Madalena Baer who asks if rain pressure metrics have been discussed as part of regulatory methods of ensuring appropriate rain aid rule enforcement. Is it like is in the FEI or the federations? Anybody has been asking you or colleagues who are working on rain tension to work with them and then propose rules about that, or not at all?
Thank you for the question. No, the answer is no, but I think the problem is also a little bit of the measuring devices. There are some available, and on the development, but maybe not, they are not ready for use in this kind of situation yet. On research purposes, yes, but the use is not so easy. So maybe it's in the future that will be the case, but not at this moment. But of course, yes, something to think about.
And here can add something. And we have the problem that regarding rain tension, because the device problems, the science has the device problems as well. And so I would say that all the scientific knowledge we have on rain tension is comparatively small up to now. So there are some studies who go into specific details, but we don't know exactly what good rain tension is. At least I am not aware of that. So how looks a perfect rain tension cycle? Like we heard from Mrs. Stückelberger that the weight of the rains should be enough. What we can say as scientists, I think pretty clear, is we never measured that. Everybody is pulling much more, much harder that you get to measure. But we measured not enough riders to really can seriously back up with good, reliable data. And then mostly the mean rain tension is reported and not the peaks. And the horse will feel the maximum in each stride cycle. So it is not easy to get that out of the data. So you are struggling quite a lot with that as well. And if you don't, if you are not good with programming, you have to do it all by yourself, And so the researchers are now going that way, but they started recently, I would say. And so this is a problem that we have. So it's really hard up to now to give out rules to apply. And we couldn't measure them anyway because we are lacking, like Kati said, the good devices. So yeah, but there's an urgent need to do it. So it's a good question and a valid remark.
Thank you very much. I think we have to wrap up because it's 7 o'clock. I thank everybody really very much. I think there are other questions and remarks, and we would like to go on talking about this because we're all very passionate. So I again would like to ask the federations, the national and FEI, to try to make sure that this dialogue between us and them can go on as I would have liked it to, but as it was stopped. But I again ask for them to organize the meeting, please. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.